Good morning, everyone. Again, this is M.R. Rangaswamy from San Francisco, the founder of Indiaspora. This is our continuing series of salons and programs that Indiaspora has created during the times of COVID. And as you know, we've had many different programs before with Dr. Vivek Murthy, with Geeta Gopinath, the chief economist of the IMF, Dr. Deepak Chopra and Malika Chopra, and several others during these past few months. And so this is a continuing series of that. Again, as for those of you who are not Indiaspora members or friends, Indiaspora is a nonprofit that participates in political engagement, community issues, and philanthropy. And we are absolutely delighted today to have two amazing guests with us, and you'll hear from them very soon. Again, the format of today's show is that you can have questions to Madhuri and Ram using the chat function. And we might also be calling some of our members and friends to actually come on the video to ask their questions themselves. So if you want any questions to be answered, the first option is to use the chat function. We'll be monitoring that throughout the show. So welcome again. And I'm so happy and delighted to introduce, like I said, two amazing guests. First of all, Madhuri Dixit. She's a legend in the industry. She's an eminent actress, movie star, producer, dancer, entrepreneur. She's acted, I think, in 73 movies. I've lost track myself, but she's captivated Indian audiences with so many movies like Tezab and Ram Lakhan and Sajan and Parinda, and the list goes on and on and on. I'm sure a lot of you have seen her in many of these movies. She still continues to draw audiences for movies, and now her passion in dance. Madhuri and Ram started Dance with Madhuri, which has seen amazing transformative growth during the COVID-19 lockdown. And we'll hear from her more about why she started this and what she's doing there. Madhuri is also a UNICEF ambassador. She's also received the Padma Shri. And this is what I want to borrow from Madhuri myself is she has 20 million Instagram followers, 10 million Twitter followers, 30 million Facebook friends, and 10 million TikTok friends. We want to borrow that for a couple of weeks to help Indiaspora promote itself. So we're negotiating with you, Madhuri, as we speak. So also with Madhuri is her husband, Dr. Shriram Nene. Ram and I got to know each other a few years ago at a couple of events and became friends. And Ram was born in London, but you'll see when he speaks, he actually has an American accent, which kind of goes, he's part of the diaspora. He was a self-taught programmer at age 13. He then went on, like most Indian families, became a doctor because that was the #1 choice. He's a very famous cardiovascular and thoracic surgeon. In 2011, Madhuri and Ram created R&M Moving Pictures, which is a platform agnostic digital media and content creation company. Ram is also a healthcare innovator, actively involved in healthcare issues. Again, he has a new YouTube channel. We'll be putting that up as a link in the chat function for you to take a look at. A very new and innovative channel that he has started. So I'd love to welcome Madhuri and Ram and have them make their opening remarks, and then we'll get into questions. So Madhuri and Ram, welcome to Indiaspora.
Thank you.
MR, it's a real honor and it's great to see you again. I want to applaud you guys for what you've done in advocating for our community there. And, you know, to put it in numbers, we're a fairly small community, less than 1.52% of the entire population. But what you see is some of the hardest working, brightest minds and people who have changed the way things happen. And I think that's the traditional immigrant story. But I think the other thing which is important, which you're bringing to the equation, is that we never forget our roots. And we kind of bring our culture, which we brought with us as we immigrated to the US. My folks immigrated to London in '63 and then to the US in '73. And I was born in London and then grew up in the US. And I can tell you how it's changed in those 40, 50 years. And I think there's still a lot to be done. I think there's huge opportunities to make it commonplace. I mean, if you go to London now, one of the national dishes is like chicken tikka or something like that. I see that happening in the US as well. But when you're talking about every walk of life, whether it's medicine, 40% of the trainees right now, whether it's academia, many of the professors, whether it's business, many of the CEOs, or whether it's any other walk, Indians have done a great job of assimilating into the audience as well as maintaining their own thing. So it's an honor to be here. Madhuri?
Yeah, it's an honor to be here, Amar, and all the wonderful things you're doing for the Indian diaspora there. You know, it's so important for them to have a connection with something that's very Indian, something rooted. And me being part of the Hindi, you know, film industry, I've been very fortunate that I could take and bring that culture and, you know, take it all over the world. I've received a lot of love from everyone, you know, whether it's in America or Europe or everywhere. And I feel very, very fortunate to be where I am. And, you know, that's why we came up with the idea of Dance with Madhuri, because we will talk about it, you know, during this interview. But a lot of things, since I've been a part of this industry for, I think now nearly 35 years, you know, I went into production and we started Dance with Madhuri, and, you know, there's so many things we really want to do. Also, you know, it is a great way to connect with my audience as well, not just in India, but also everywhere else. You know, they have appreciated me for my dance and, you know, for the acting and everything. And we thought, you know, dance would be something that people would be wanting to learn, and especially the Indian, you know, diaspora there, who looks forward to, you know, all the Hindi films. They love, you know, songs from Bollywood. And so a lot of things to talk about, and I'm really, really glad to be here today.
Great. So let's dive into Dance with Madhuri, right? So what caused you to create this, think of this concept, and how is it doing now? I know with COVID, everybody's at home, and this is a great platform. So can you walk us through why you started it, and how what it actually does?
So just to take a step back, when we came to India, our visions were similar, but in different fields. I found, as an operating cardiothoracic surgeon, I could touch maybe 300 to 500 lives directly in a year, and it wasn't scalable. And for Madhuri on film, it was scalable. So we saw in India an opportunity to do something for me in medicine, because there's 1.6 million doctors and 1.35 billion patients. And so when we came here, we created something called R&M Moving Pictures, which is a platform agnostic digital content company, because what our thought was that all streams would converge, and how you got your content would be up to you. And rather than a TV with sponsors and all that deciding, digitally you would do this. And this was in 2011, before it was happening. And secondly, by designing short and long form content to educate and entertain, and then taking it out to the farthest reaches using a combination of platforms, we could give people access to the information and the masters which they didn't have. And so when we started looking at it for medicine, I was working, and then one day she said to me, you know, what about education, right? One of the biggest problems in India is people don't have the opportunity or the access to get an education. And if we could design something, a platform which we could curate and populate with anything, skin it with anything you like, and make it, you know, a real value for money, and also easy to use, it could be something interesting. Well, it just so happened we had an ambassador for one of the creative arts in-house, and she took it from there and said, look, why don't we do this for dance? And so in 2013, we launched the first version of this. After 3 months of ideation and then creation, we built the back ends, the front ends, and filmed the content. And, you know, I didn't know how popular she was, honestly. And, you know, when we got married, I didn't watch Hindi films. I couldn't speak Hindi. I'm Maharashtrian, and I could only speak Marathi. And so it was interesting. Everyone's asked us this, and they'll keep asking. But what happened is, the first day when we launched, all of our servers on AWS crashed. And what we realized, we had 95 journalists in the office, and we did kind of a low bid launch. And all of a sudden, within several months, we had 6 million page views. And this was in 2013, right? Where the bandwidth equation in India wasn't great. The second thing that happened, which is quite interesting, is she had fans all over the planet. Only 50% of our users were from India, and 50% were outside. 17% were actually in the US. And so this started to grow, and I initially went with a very small, lean startup kind of approach, and then scaled it to Android and iOS. And then within a year, we rebuilt the backends because we couldn't handle the volume. When she would go on a show and talk about this, we'd get this storm surge of like 160 or 200,000 concurrent users. And again, our AWS platforms would crash. So we had to move everything out, put EC2s in to scale it. We created it on CloudFront with Elemental and all these other toys, and then went forward. And then to answer your question, in COVID, what changed was that so there was one point before this. Remember, in India, the bandwidth equation was limited. The cost per GB and the number of smartphones was not that high. And part of that was the fact that in the interiors where they really needed this stuff, they didn't have the opportunity until a eureka moment when Geo came on board. All of a sudden, the cost per GB went way down. And in India, our audiences grew at an equally staggering rate. And at the same time, to take it to the last mile, we cut deals with the DTH platforms, which were routinely seeing 100 million people. And in doing that, we became profitable and a beta positive and sustainable. That's what we were looking for, to put it at a very low amount. And then within 2 years, we started to market hard on the digital part. And that was right before COVID hit. And all of a sudden, people didn't have any options. They wanted to learn. They were stuck at home. And so you can tell them what we did with the initiatives.
Well, first of all, I'm very passionate about dance, and that's why we selected dance as the first thing we would teach digitally or, online. The basic problems with learning something is access, and what to learn, and who are the good teachers. You have to travel to that place. That's time taken away from your schedule. Also, the rates at which people teach, the price is very high when you go and do a class. And so, keeping all that in mind, we thought that this would be a great way to teach dance and get the best of teachers like Maharajji or Sarojji, who I've looked up to, or, the other choreographers who I've worked with when I did my dance shows like Jhalak or, Dance Divane. We chose the best people from, from all walks of, say, dance styles, you can say. And we brought them together under one roof, and we teach everything from, classical dancing to semi-classical to folk, Western dancing, whether it's hip hop or ballet or, Bharatnatyam, Kathak, everything. We teach everything under one roof. So I thought it was a great way to get all these artists together and, create a community of people who are like-minded and who want to be creative, who want to do something that's outside the box. And so we got all these people together and created that, Dance with Madhuri. During the COVID, we found that people didn't have anything to do, and they were all wanting to learn something, to do something new. And to encourage them, we did a lot of programs, like gave free classes. We did something, learn your culture, learn your heritage, where we taught only classical dances with semi-classical. We did a lot of competitions, to keep them occupied and going. And I think dance is a great form to keep fit as well. And so, we were very happy that we could do all this for them during COVID. And I think we had a very, very good response. Like, we went just 5x, of what we were doing.
And the interesting part was that when you give, you get. And there were a couple of equations here which taught us a lot of lessons. We'd always been doing this, where on the supplier side, from the teachers, they didn't have a way to teach. And a lot of these schools were in deep financial trouble. So what we did is said, look, let us help you. Let us take it out to the audience, and we'll do a few free classes, and then, we'll charge a nominal subscription rate and all that, and keep you back in business, because they didn't have this. The best they could do was Zoom, and they didn't have marketing, and they didn't have a way to monetize this. So we actually started live classes. That was the most recent experiment. But before that, we had 250 hours of pre-recorded stuff, which we had done on 4K with the best production teams and all that. Initially BBC, then 120MC, and then we now do it from in-house with our complete team. But what we found, so from the supplier side, we were helping the equation in building a global village for culture. On the consumption side, people didn't have a way out of this. I mean, it was so stressful that all of a sudden you were thrown into this petri dish, and I'm sure you guys faced it too, where everyone is together in one household. And honestly, there was a lot of data in the medical fields where dance could be used to de-stress people. It could be used to get them to work out. It could be used to help them with choreas and different movement problems. It could also be used for social awkwardness and things like that. And it kind of brought families together. And what happened was we initially said, look, we're gonna just say this'll be what we do. All of a sudden the subs started going up and we increased by 5x, and we're like, wow, this is like a tailwind. And then we said, well, let's scale it even more, because there's an opportunity to do some good and to give people what they need. And the interesting part, in the US, 17% of our users were coming out of that, and they were more than happy because they didn't have access to this kind of stuff. And I think every college now has like a Bollywood dance team. Every high school has it there. You'll see it on AGT and all the common channels. And, you know, we've got the masters like Biju Maharaji, Saroj Khan, Terrence, MD, all these guys, plus 68 other choreographers from all of the different walks and disciplines. And we've got people out of the US teaching now, and we're extending to other disciplines like acting and cooking and other things, because we think culture is important.
So just to follow on to that, I know the dance program has taken off and you're doing great. R&M has other also productions going on. Can you talk a little bit? I know you sold a movie to Netflix and some of those things. Can you take us through what other things you're doing there?
So you know, the film business was her baby. And I am kind of the financial controller and kind of figure out.
I do the creative stuff, and then he takes it on.
And so they're looking at hundreds, if not thousands, of scripts. And the idea is to tell stories that really get people engaged. And we started out with regional dialects. Our first film was 15th August in Marathi, and that was meant to go to the theater. And what happened was Netflix saw it and they loved it. And they said, look, let me make you a deal you can't refuse. And they were great partners. And, you know, that was at a time when people weren't doing that, right? And it worked really well for all of us. And it was really appreciated. And when we told the cast and crew, and, you know, we're fans and promoters of the artists, as well as of the users who are coming in to watch. And we want to tell genuine stories, which are, you know, meaningful and stir you and get you to think. And so we finished our second film. We have a few more in the works. And that film was supposed to release in May in the theaters. And all of a sudden, everything went down. And now we're negotiating with the OTTs to take it out on another OTT platform. But the thing is, the whole world has moved, right? Everything has changed. I don't know how much binge watching you do, but I'm sure most of us have done our share in this lockdown. And it's opened up worlds to express. I think you can tell that story even better.
Yeah, absolutely. And what the OTT platforms have done for filmmaking is that you are not caught up, you know, with things that you have to put in a movie to make it a blockbuster. If it's going to the theater, it has to be in a certain way, and it has to be, you know, have this kind of, it has to be larger than life. And, you know, what OTT has done is that you can tell your very small, sweet, everyday life stories, make it with confidence in the way you want to make it, and present the stories to people all over the world. So it's not just India, but it's everywhere. Like, I watched a few Spanish films, French films, you know, Korean, and, you know, you're exposed to so much cinema all over the world that I think somewhere that maturity, that, you know, that knowing that we need with our audiences is happening, because our audience is also, you know, getting a taste of different kind of movies being made. And so that gives us a freedom to make the kind of films we want to make. And I think that's the biggest thing that has happened, you know, during this lockdown, I think.
Yeah, and globally, you know, platforms like Netflix have
Yes.
made Indian matchmaking and now Bad Boy Billionaires huge hits, not just in India. So I'm sure you can leverage that kind of platform to go to different
Absolutely.
places.
Yes, different countries.
Uh, Maybe I'll turn a little bit now, Ram, if you don't mind, to the healthcare side. I know
Sure.
you launched a YouTube channel. So talk us through what you're trying to do. I know previously when you and I talked, when we were in India, you were investing in a Fitbit-like company called, I think, Gokui or
Goki, yeah.
Goki,
So I
yeah.
was, so when I came here, my whole intent was to kind of rethink or reimagine how healthcare is delivered. Because look, you can't build more hospitals globally or in India. You can't train more doctors. And there's a lot of people who are underserved. And you know, the funniest thing is the people you would think are well served are often the people in denial and rejection. I mean, the studies have shown time and again, the VIPs get the worst care because they overstep the boundaries and they wait until the last minute. So the way we look at this is we thought the two major problems to healthcare globally are awareness and access to world-class evidence-based international standards. And what we are creating is something which has media, technology, and a smart services platform. And what we're trying to do is bring everyone together to join hands to educate as well as entertain and kind of start early and often in a user journey. So from cradle to grave, we're going to provide support for people and give them what they need. And the alignment should always be to the center of the universe, which is the user. Along that journey, I invested through the family office, was actually a chief medical officer on Goki for the first couple of years. And then I was also building out our own products. And I've been busy with some of the other things. And now I've turned full-time to healthcare. And this YouTube, the social media, and the websites are going up. We're building out the platform and the services marketplaces and platforms. But our intent is simple, right? That no matter who you are, no matter where you are, you deserve the best. And part of that is educating you on what your individual pathway is and looking at your genetics, looking at your past medical history, and looking at your present history, and then walking in your shoes to understand what you need, building a precision, personalized healthcare unit for you so that you can do what you want. And ultimately, it's about two things, right? Lifespan and lifestyle. And in India, I don't know if you know, but the median life expectancy is 10 years younger. 69 is the median life expectancy here versus 78 in the US. And to be honest, I mean, Singapore was the same as us in 65, and then they rapidly assimilated to the Western standards. I'm bullish on India, and through India, the rest of the world, and we're launching globally. Because I think some of the same issues are there. It's how you get services are a little different. But I think that even if you look at the socioeconomic units, in the lowest quartile, you create a foundation with IAs and you take it out. In the middle class, a subscription model. And in the wealthy, you do a concierge program. And it's a very simple way to discern it, but you provide world-class healthcare, which is aligned to them, rather than the business of medicine, right? And everyone gains in this, the government, the businesses, most important, the user in the center of the universe.
Oh, that's terrific. And we're starting to get a lot of questions here and people want some answers. So we'll kind of try to take questions and then come back to some of these things. But if people have questions, just put that into the chat box. The first one is for Madhuri. Ganesh says from India, hope she teaches Kathak as well as Bollywood gyrations because there's such a big market in the US. The Chandanam School in the Bay Area is a case in point. Madhuri is such a fabulous Kathak dancer herself. Can you get into things like Kathak?
Yes, I do. And I have taught on Dance with Madhuri. I have done a few Kathak Thumris and taught those. We have one of the best Kathak gurus in this world, Birju Maharaji, who is also teaching. And so please go on Dance with Madhuri and explore, and you'll see, the classes. And there's Bollywood also. Lot of Bollywood dances we've taught, all the popular numbers, even my own popular numbers. I have taught myself on Dance with Madhuri. So I would say, please go on and just take a look at it.
But your viewer asked a great question. We're trying to bring everyone together. So even the schools in the US and the peoples in the US are welcome to join us and teach, because what we think is the journey, and we gamified this from the beach to the Natraj, that you have a journey as a dancer, and it should be the same. It's always three things: brand, content, and construct. And if we can help them to grow, then we're going to get our message out, which is that the Indian diaspora and the culture are really important. And that's really the way to go about it, in our opinion.
So one more question from, I think people have been following you guys for a long time. What is this thing about sabudana khichdi? What happened there? I mean, people are following you guys even when you eat.
Well, we did a little experiment on our YouTube channel. We made sabudana khichdi, which is a big deal because I love it and he loves it as well.
Absolutely.
He thinks it's the grandma, and he used to go to his grandma's house and she used to make it. There's a lot of love, and there's something special about that, sabudana khichdi that we both feel about. And that's why we did this little YouTube where we actually cooked sabudana khichdi and, gave people our way of cooking it and asked for their tips and anything that we could improve on. So it was a very fun kind of video,
and the thing
which
is,
people enjoyed.
I encourage you guys to do the same. That right now in the lockdown, you got to come together as family. The family that plays together stays together. And so we're doing all kinds of things. The kids, you can't see behind me, but there's like a whole small studio and we play music together, and that'll be up on the YouTube channel and there. But I would say every single one of you guys, test the limits, and go and learn something every single day. And with sabudana, I mean, I'm sure every single Indian knows there's some dish that their mother gave them that's pure love. And this was one of those, right? And when we got to making it, what we realized is this is amazingly easy and amazingly tasty. So check out the recipe. Tell me what you guys think.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you'll love it.
Absolutely, we'll do that. And I come from Chennai, so my favorite dish is upma, which is sort of similar.
Absolutely, it's lovely.
Another question from Nitesh for both of you. So it's a known fact that you've lived their lives with the utmost simplicity and sheer honesty, but in the enigma surrounding Madhuri Dixit, or the experience-rich anecdotes of Dr. Nene's work life, fans await an autobiography of sorts, which with your inspiring journeys. So when are you guys going to do an autobiography?
Well, if I'll speak for myself, and I think there's a lot more to do, a lot more to achieve before one can really say that, or when I feel that, okay, now is the time to, get an autobiography done. Because I think we both have a lot of things we want to do. We've dreamt a lot of things that we actually want to make happen before we think of doing anything like that.
I would say something different. I would say that you need to chronicle your life. I would say writing a diary or doing a YouTube channel or doing that is so important. And we were talking about this the other day, about crossroads and learning from them and where you've been and what you've done. And not just for you, but we were talking with our kids about this and the kinds of challenges we went through. And this is kind of shared history, which you transmit to the next generation. And some of that we'll do through our YouTube channels or through our public appearances and all that. But I would say for every single one of us, right, the human condition is amazing. And we can learn from each other and do that. So I think, Nitesh, to you, it's a great idea. And I think we should consider it, at least chronicling some parts, so that, as we get older, we don't forget all this. But more importantly, so that it maybe gives other people some life lessons. And I would say the same for you, MR, and every one of your panel. You're very esteemed. I think everyone is. Everyone has a kernel of genius, as I say. You just have to discover what it is and come out with it.
Great. You've convinced me, Ram. I'm going to start a YouTube channel next. Another question, Ram, for you. Will there be personal sessions in healthcare with Ram, like Madhuri has with her dance channel?
Yeah. We're actually building that out as a telemedicine messenger. And the idea is simple, though, that I want everything in one place for every patient. Right now, if you go to a doctor here, you carry a little bag of goodies, And, you know, there's not always one medical record. I think that's true everywhere, right? And everyone's tried. India's tried, the US has tried, but there's this Tower of Babel effect. So to answer your question, that is in the works. And whether it'll be, you know, one-on-one sessions with me personally, or with our panel, or whatever, our goal is to give you insights into you and try to help you be your best you and live your best life. And that's the only goal. I mean, in the end of it, I've worked really hard on myself and on my family. And we told that in the video. And bottom line is, I think that it's critical now to go out and kind of transmit that and get all of the good people to come together and do it together.
Great. Question from Harshul for Madhuri. Today happens to be International Day of the Girl Child. Madhuri, you being one of the most influential change makers, what is your message to the world on this day? And how do you believe things have changed since you were growing up in India?
Well, I think things have changed a lot for the better. Some things are not that good yet, but I hope through education, through empowerment, you know, we will get there. It's one step at a time, you know, and I think for a girl child, it's very important to make sure that education is, you know, one of the main issues that has to be addressed, where women have to be educated. And I think that's how I see a step forward, you know, for women in this country and everywhere in the world, actually. So, so I think my whole thing would be about education. You know, education is the crux of, you know, how we can educating men, educating women, because that's the only way forward.
That's terrific. We have one of our members, Renita. Renita, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, please? If you're on the line.
Oh, okay. Thanks, MR. Hi. So here's my question. I'm a storyteller, journalist, storyteller, writer, etc. Many things. And I have a question about Natya Shastra and the principles of Natya Shastra, which is something that I'm very interested in incorporating into my own storytelling, and wonder if, as you explore sort of these productions on the OTT platforms, Netflix and so forth, have you thought about incorporating principles of Natya Shastra in storytelling for non-Indian audiences? And like I said, it's something I'm very interested in, but I would love the perspective of someone else who has obviously much more experience and who is here in the West. You know, we tend to be very either India-centric or Western audience focused, and sometimes
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah,
because Natya Shastras, they are the foundation of, you know, acting, dancing, everything, the whole cultural gamut. And it's a great idea that we could create something that kind of speaks about that and explains it to the people in a very, very, you know, entertaining way, and yet, you know, bring out, because I think even though we live in India, a lot of people don't know about these things. It's all hearsay, thersay, or something that has been taught, or, you know, but they don't really. Natya Shastra is.
Forgive me, I'm like,
okay.
I grew up in the West.
It's like a grantha, right? It's
What's
about everything. It's like a say encyclopedia of everything that has to do with the arts.
yeah.
And so it's a brilliant idea. I think it's something we can really think about.
Yes, mudras and the whole everything. I'm excited. I want to work with you.
I think you're onto something, because no one's really kind of made this into a curated content piece. And that's one thing we're trying to do, where we're reaching out to universities and actually formalizing it. In Bharatanatyam, for instance, they do have that with their Aranganatram and all the other.
That's the last thing that they have to do.
But I would say not just with dance, but in all fields India, there's a lot of stuff handed down over 4,000 years, and it's there, but a lot of it's verbal, like the temple dancers and all the other stuff. And I learned a lot about dance through this, you know, because we were putting together everything. And I'm like, I didn't even know what you were talking about just now. And then it dawned on me, this is the reference, and it makes sense. But I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's related to dance. I mean, it's the other art forms, the martial arts, Kalari Payatu, which everyone is going to be more familiar with. I mean, these are dying arts, and the way we can bring them back is through dance and drama. So, okay, great, thank you.
Thanks, Rita. We also have Seema Chaturvedi, one of our members. She has a question as well. Seema, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, Madhuri. It is such a pleasure to see you in person, and Dr. Nene as well. My question, Madhuri, is I'm a strong proponent of women's economic empowerment. You touched upon it a little. The old Indian adage of this "jiski lati uski bhais" rings true for me every morning when I wake up. And there's a general belief that capital allocation and the control on investment capital can really change the gender inequity that exists. Would love to hear your views on economic empowerment of women.
I think it's, like I said, in India, we have to work on the rudimentary first. You know, just the basic things to be made available to women. 70% of our population is in the villages. Only 30% resides in the cities, where of course women are educated, they are out on their own, they are independent, they're empowered. But I'm talking about these 70% of the population of women who are in the rural, where even sanitation is a big problem. And so I think first we have to get to the grassroots and solve these problems first for the women. I've worked with UNICEF on women and children, where like basic things like when a woman is pregnant, just giving her folic acid, because otherwise the child mortality rate is very high, because most of the women here, they don't have a proper diet, they're anemic, and a lot of them, they lose their kids in childbirth, or the woman loses her life in childbirth. And so unless we get them the basic things first, then we can talk about the next stage, like education, which is very important to empower the woman. You teach a woman and you can teach a whole family, like they say. And so unless we don't take care of these basic needs, how are we going to say let's empower them with giving them, say, loans, micro loans, which somebody has already done, and it is being done for women in business. But unless we lift them from that state, then we can think about doing.
I would say one more thing. I taught a course at IIT in the business school, and the interesting part is, if you look at this wave of entrepreneurship that started in 2010, 2011 onwards, 91 to 94% of those are males. They're very young. 2/3 of the population here is below 35. What I think needs to happen early and often is we need to encourage merit, and we need to give people, role models. And I have plenty of friends, Kiran Mazumdar Shah, a lot of people who we've talked to about this, and it's also a rural and metro issue, in that 70% of India is rural. And to those areas, in many cases, you're gonna end up dealing with some of the base problems that you have to deal early in the educational career, and there's still a stigma. She's a girl, she's gonna be married off, she should not be educated, which is nonsense, because I think that it should not matter. Our greatest gift in India is the number of people we have. And it doesn't matter male or female. And for females, for women, we need to be supportive. We need to get them doing what they need to be doing, because the ideas in my office, it was close to 50-50. And granted, we run a film company and all that, and we're a little different. And then it kind of swelled one way and then the other way. But my point is that you need it all. And we need to advocate early and often, like she's saying. And then at the college levels, we also need to have very strong motivations and develop funds and bases to kind of invest in people, right? And that's what it's all about. Investing in people who you think have the promise to lead and then become the role models and the guides for the next generation.
But in my industry itself, I think I've seen a lot of change. When I used to work, when I'd started working, and now when I walk onto a set, when I used to work before, I'm talking about like 30 years back, the only women we used to see on the set was myself and any other co-actor or the hairdressers. These are the only women on the sets. But today when I walk in, you know, there are women in every department, whether it's costume, you know, one of the cameraman of my movie that I've made now is a woman. And I was like, yes, you know, and I feel so good when I walk because I see the progress. I see how women are taking center stage. So many women directors coming forward, making such beautiful films and making a name for themselves. So it is happening. But like I said, that we have to start with the grassroots for it to become a very big movement.
Madhuri, if I can, with your permission, MR, just make a statement there. So I work with the US State Department, and we took a program to India, 106 small towns, not cities, 20 states. There's a woman from Vidarbh who's exporting now to California.
Wow, wow, wonderful.
And it's the power of women paying it forward. We'd love to be able to share that with you at some point.
Sure, absolutely. Congratulations.
Thank you, MR. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
Pleasure.
Question from Dr. Kamal Bawa. He says, have you thought of using dance as a medium for highlighting environmental issues, which is a big deal in India, as you know, and in the US?
Yes, I mean, it's a great way to, you know, take forward a message to create awareness. And I remember I had done something for the World Hockey Cup, and we had talked about Earth and how it evolved and how many, you know, turmoil it went through and how what we are doing to the environment. And this was like a half an hour. The opening of the show was done with this theme. And I was Mother Earth, and I was talking about how everybody, the equality, how we should take care of our environment and everything that has to do with it. So yes, it's a wonderful, you know, idea and something that can be taken forward.
I mean, ultimately, if you can entertain and educate,
yes,
it's like a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, if you will. And if you can do that, you can tell stories which people will not forget. And so I think he's onto something, and it's something which we've done before, but I think it's a lesson for everyone.
Great. Another member of ours, Chaitra, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Hi, Amar.
Hello.
Hi, Amar. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So first, just thank you for, hi, Amar. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Ram and Madhuri, very inspiring of what you're doing. So my question is, what kind of partnerships you are looking for to creating more access to education, and how can the Indian community across the world can contribute to ensure that we create more access for women? And the reason why I'm saying is I, as a woman here in US, we are creating $1 billion in economic access for women founders. And we are looking for partners who can actually create significant access for women to be successful in building technology businesses.
First, I want to congratulate you on your efforts, because honestly, it's high time that we stepped up and did the right thing for everyone. And in this case, that will make a change. So, you know, the types of partners we're looking for are kind of strategic in that their thinking moves the needle. It you know, basically aligns with the interest to change the world and to make it a better place for all of us. And so if you think of that roughly as the guide, the economic stuff, as you can imagine, the networks all of us reside in, you can raise. But what really matters to us is that the mindset has to be the same. And I mean, this is a lesson I learned early and often, and no offense to anyone, but you know, VCs and PEs are out to make money, right? Angels are there to kind of align with you. Somewhere in the middle, you're gonna need the money, but you're also gonna need the strategics. And to answer your question, I think it's important to make sure that your partners you can have dinner with every day for the rest of your life, and that they can be aligned with you on this journey, and they won't just sublime it. And we've been very careful. We never took on money, and we bootstrapped this and actually made it self-sustaining, and for all of our ventures so far. And we've been, you know, very, very privileged to do that because of what we do and what we've done in our past. But we came from very humble beginnings, both of us. And we brought this to fruition with really hard work, divine providence, and a lot of luck. And we want to help others do the same. to express their visions and to do that. But it takes a lot of good people. As they say, it takes a village to build things like that. And we would love to join hands with strategics who are in different areas, who can provide different types of support, and also help them to grow massively, to do the right thing.
Right.
So thank you, Ram. We would love to look into working through MR, is work through UN and work through how we can actually contribute to your goals. So we will reach out to you a little later.
Sounds great. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Another question from Jay Sago on philanthropy. Jay, do you want to unmute yourself, please?
Wow, what a great opportunity. Thank you so much. And it's indeed a pleasure. Indiaspora, thank you for organizing MR. It's fantastic to be here. My question to both of you, actually, you're both such a prominent figures, both in India as well as in the US. And many non-resident Indians are doing tremendous amount of work in India for the people who are in need. How would you describe, or how would you be the ambassador? There are many difficulties, many hurdles we all face. How would you just be ambassadors to help these nonprofits as well as the non-Indians to carry out their work effectively in India?
So I think it's a great question. We've worked with a number of different foundations and charities like AIF and others, and also with local foundations, the UN and UNICEF and whatnot. I think the key is you have to look at number one, the people, number two, the process. So it's just like you do for your companies, right? You're looking at the idea, the people, the process, and then the net effect. The hard part is whenever you're working in this type of emerging economy, the amount of leakage can be significant. And that's the difficulty that all of us have here, right? That we don't know where our hard-earned funds and everything are going. And so we're very picky and choosy. And as ambassadors, everything reflects, you've worked your whole life, and this is a lesson you learn, to develop your integrity. It's the thing you're born with and the thing you want to retain until you die. It takes a lifetime to build it and 5 seconds to lose it. And the bottom line is you want to align with people who share that and who will do that. And so we've been very particular as to who, and honestly, I mean, everyone is good. I'm going to assume that. I'm going to say that out loud, right? And the bottom line is you got to look for the good in them. But at the same time, you have to be very clear about what your objectives are. And there are some great charities. And the idea is to come together, join hands, and funnel it properly to see the end effect. And I think there's a number of different things which do that. I think you need an on-ground presence. I think you need people who are transparent. And the last thing is you need people who have nothing to gain. You know, when you've got ambassadors who are already well thought of and well positioned, they have everything to lose if something goes wrong. And so those are the types of people that you bring to the table when you create your boards and your foundations so that things go right. And, you know, you bring up an important point, and MR was pointing this out. Indians in India and Indians in the US don't contribute as much as they could. And in the US in particular, we represent the top echelons of the tax brackets. That has to change, right? We did well. Okay, fine, done. But the issue is, I would say that giving is getting. And that's the legacy that we'll all leave behind. And no matter what you do at the end, it's not the companies you build. It's not the number of procedures you do. It's not the devices you create. It's what you did for your fellow mankind.
And how many lives you've touched.
Yes, and whether that's through films or whether it's through healthcare for us, it doesn't matter. But the point is, that's what gives us satisfaction. And I think you're the same way, and so is MR, and so is this whole team, hence they're doing what they do. So does that answer your question?
Thanks. A question from Vinita Gupta on healthcare. Vinita, can you unmute yourself?
Thank you, MR. Great to meet both of you on online. Very inspiring what I heard. And for Dr. Nene, my question is, I am a little bit associated with healthcare as a board member, but technology person. And what do you think about introduction of a two-tier medical system in the US? We have not been able to provide good care for the masses. And that is worrisome, yet our costs are so high. But the physicians in general have been resistant to that. So wanted to hear your opinion on that.
So it's a very polarized question, and we have to be absolutely clear about what we're asking. Let me just back up a moment and give you an Indian example, right? In India, so in the US, when I practiced, the cardiologists and we would talk about the door to balloon time, right? And that's that period where you get admitted to the hospital, and if it's within 30 minutes to the cath lab to get cath and open up an artery, your life gets saved. Well, guess what? In India, it's more like the rickshaw to the door and then the door to the balloon, if you have that door, right? And so what I'm getting at is, I think we all need to rethink how we do this, and that we need to move the pendulum from pure acute care to prevention, early recognition, and early treatment. If we intervene early and often, the number of cases won't go down, but the outcomes will improve dramatically, because you will intervene in a patient's life cycle before the disease meets its natural history. And in India, we see a lot of diseases via natural history and very late in the disease process, hence the mortality goes up. And so what we're advocating is, if we can give people a digital toolbox and then give them a set of parameters to guide them on what's best for them based on their own particular genetics, their past medical history, their social history, and more than that, their life. Because you're not going to provide the same care to someone who can afford everything versus someone who can. And if we can prevent them and educate them and raise their awareness, as well as give them access when they need it, I think that'll make a difference. Okay, now moving forward, the US spends 16 to 17% of its GDP on healthcare per year. You know, look at India. By comparison, we spend less than 3 to 4% here, of which 65% is private pay. The government only does 1 to 1.5%, and that's for a population of 1.35 billion. So clearly, there has to be a way to change the dialogue. And I think the first part of that is creating a dialogue, getting people talking about their own health and figuring out what's best for them. Now look, it's so stressful right now. I mean, you know, lots of lives have been touched by what's going on with the pandemic. Even before that, though, there were a lot of lives touched, and the level of stress has gone up. More than that, you know, jobs, this, that, the other, they're all there. People are losing healthcare. I think these are not simple problems to solve, but I think if we can solve them on a individual basis by giving people their toolbox and finding out and triaging who really needs to come in and teaching them about what they need to know so that they come in early, teaching them the risk factors, the signs and symptoms, giving them great entertaining as well as educational stuff, and then giving them an AI cloud-based EMR with a blockchain encoding so that it's privacy protected, and then giving them a smart services platform. I think that is the start. And in fact, in the US, we're moving towards that. In India, I've been working with the iSpirit Foundation, and Sharad Sharma and Lalit Khatragowda have done some remarkable things along with their teams. There's so many people, I can't even tell you, but they're building, they built something called Aadhaar and UPI and then handed it off to the government. And similarly, in this pandemic, we've been helping with various problems, and what they're building is a health stack. And that is completely not for profit, right? And that is the rudimentary plumbing layer on which everything else is built. Once you have that, and there's no conflict of interest, because I would say the business of medicine becomes the conflict of interest, right? And when you have that, you can make all your shareholders get satisfied. But the key is to create sustainability and improve lifespans and lifestyles.
Great. Thank you. A couple of questions for Madhuri, one from Gayatri. I hope, Madhuri, this doesn't make you smile, but Madhuri, being one of the most famous actresses and a beautiful dancer with great expressions, you have one of the most beautiful smiles I've seen. What is the secret of your smile?
Oh my God. Thank you so much, first of all. And I think it's all in the eye of the beholder. I don't know anything special or anything. I think it's my genetics, and I have to be thankful to my mom and dad that, but I think what is important is you should always be happy in life, be happy with what you have, just help other people as much as possible. And, just enjoy life, be in it, live every day, and smile, because I mean, that's the best cosmetic you could ever have.
Great. Another question from another member is, you've done 73 movies. What is your most favorite movie?
Wow. That's a very difficult question. It's very hard to choose one, but since I've been asked to choose one, I would say a movie that I enjoyed making, a movie that did very well, and the movie that made me like a family member of every fan was Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. So I would say maybe that film.
Great. Question on from another one on mental health, Ram. Do you have any ideas to incorporate mental health, which has become a big issue during COVID these days?
It's a great question, and absolutely is the answer, because that's one discipline that is uniquely amenable to a video-based telemedicine platform. And the only thing about it is how to bring everything together so that they can reflect back. It's interesting you should bring this up. One part of our media thing is we're creating long form content for Netflix and Amazon Prime. One of the series is actually on mental health. And we're actually doing it in a different way, where we're having the central character be a psychiatrist, and you'll see how they behave. But in the process, you'll see all the characters with different things go through very difficult times. The interesting part, MR, is that Mental Health Day was a day ago, and if we recognize that the WHO estimates in their lifetime 1 in 4 people will have neurologic or mental health issues. And the key is to recognize that, and that knowledge will be our potential gift to help people. The biggest problem is in India, as well as the West, there's a stigma. And so a telemedicine platform lends itself to that, where you can get it in the privacy of your own home and you can get the counseling you need. And you know what? There's no stigma, because the best tennis players, the best race car drivers go from 90 to 100% by having that mental success coach. So I look at it a little differently. I say that, look, we're trying to guide you to be your best you. And all of us have issues and stressors. How you deal with them and how you change that framework is an issue. Second thing is, in the next 50 years, neuroscience and neurotransmitters are going to dramatically change. And some of this happened in the 60s at the place where I went to med school, where they created the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. The interesting part is we could scientifically and very reproducibly diagnose mental illness. And one big change that happened then was haloperidol came about, and a whole generation of people with schizophrenia were cured and got back to their normal lives. Same is happening with depression. And that is something which I really worry about. I worry about so many kids in schools. I worry about other things. Obviously, there's been some issues lately. And my thing is, it's something we can manage together, but we need to be supportive of each other, and we need to get the help when we need it.
Great. We have a question from Vaishali Sinha. Vaishali, if you're still on, I know you're calling from India. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, Amar. Thanks. I'm still on, and thank you for giving me the chance. It's just wonderful to see the wonderful chemistry and the good both of you are doing, Ram and Madhuri. Real compliments. I want to say that I also, kind of am a partner with my husband in a clean energy company business we do in India. And, it's very difficult to work with people you love so dearly. And I often find it difficult. So what are the ground rules of your partnership? Maybe I could learn a little bit from those. Thank you.
Love your candor. So we're two different disciplines, I would say, and it isn't that we don't argue, but we're fairly aligned on what we kind of believe in. And the other thing is, both of us know when to give in, right? I know when to say, yes, honey, go ahead. And I'm very smart. I want to stay married, right? But I mean, this is one of the things that I think lockdown taught us more than anything, when everyone is in the same house together. And I mean, look, we're very fortunate in that we have more than one bedroom, right? Much of India doesn't have that. And you can just imagine the kind of issues that can occur. But the bottom line is, I think you have to be supportive of each other. And you always have to be thinking, you know, it's not just about my opinion, it's about ours.
Yeah, and it's about goals, right? We all are wanting the same goals. We just go about in a different way. And sometimes that can kind of cause a little bit of friction that, no, I want to go this way or that way. And since your goals are the same, you finally come to the most practical conclusion and say, okay, you know, maybe you're right and maybe we should do it this way. And we're very open about that. And, you know, so I think it's hard to explain.
It's very funny you should say that. I was at a TICON giving a lecture, and one of the guys from a VC said that we never invest in couples who run a company because we've just had too much, you know, evidence and experience. I think MR can probably speak to that. I would say you take it on a case-by-case basis, because I would say the strongest relationship is when you both have a lot invested in the relationship as well as in the company. And, you know, things can happen, but the bottom line is, if you're agreed on the outcomes and you want to do the right thing for the right reasons, you know, it's not a problem. The other thing which I would tell you is get buffers in place, right? We have a 24-person team, and, you know, I give a shout out to them because they're what makes this run. I mean, we're in some ways figureheads. Obviously, I'm kind of the out of the box crazy man who ideates and creates this, but they execute it.
Yeah, and it's always teamwork. You know, it's not just both of you. There are like 12, 24 other people who are also in it. And so it's always teamwork. And that's what you should always remember. It's not about me or him. It's about teamwork and getting things done.
What's the old saying? There's no I in team. And you're only as good as your weakest link, those trite sayings. But honestly, they're true. And if you've played team sports or you've done any of this stuff, you learn it very, very early and very often. And so I would say congratulations on, number one, on doing something in clean energy. I love that. And the second thing is doing it with someone you love. And the bottom line is, I think it's a future which is sustainable. I don't agree with VCs and Ps if you have the right people, right? And I think it's just like anything else. I've seen business partnerships that end poorly when the partners fight with non-related people. And so I think that's, you know, purely there. But I think it does take a little bit when you have other obligations, the kids and all that. And I think we work well together, you know, so that's the key, right?
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
You know, guys, we're keeping you a little late than we told you. Hope you have a few more minutes because questions are just coming up. So let me know when you want to retire for the day. So another question, this is from Sarah. Hi, Madhuri. I love you so much. On a lighter note, what is your favorite snack?
Oh, thanks, Sarah. Love you too. And I think I put my most favorite snack, well, not snack, but dessert on my YouTube channel. That's modak. It's made usually during Ganpati and I just love it. So I hope that answers your question.
Great. And let's see, the next question is, I think here, let me ask you this. The Indiaspora team members are not jumped in yet. Does anyone from the Indiaspora team want to ask a question as I'm looking at the rest of the questions here? Don't be shy, guys.
Hey, Madhuri and Shriram, this is Sanjeev from Indiaspora in Washington, DC. You know, just a question for you. I mean, you talked about this a little bit already, but you have taken such a deep plunge and hopefully will be a very successful plunge in the entrepreneurial space. What experiences have you had in terms of the venture capital markets in India and the funding and so forth there that you think India still needs to improve upon, or alternatively, that you think India has to teach the rest of the world?
So I'll take that question. So I invest through my family offices in a number of different startups. And some of that goes to VCs and PEs, as well as to other funds and other things. We have toyed with the notion of taking money from a VC or a PE, but, I really haven't, personally wanted to deal with that type of pressure and that type of team, because we're focused on our work and all the other stuff. But having said that, here's the rub. India is a very fast growing country, and there's a huge amount of capital flowing into it. It's gone up light speed. And the types of ventures now, so let me back up. In the 90s, we were outsourcing all of our talent as well as all of our work. Now what's happened is there's a burgeoning middle class. There's a population of 1.35 billion people. What we recognize is that many of the things we design and implement are actually good for India. So what's happened is EduTech, for instance, has seen ridiculous growth. I mean, several of my friends are now unicorns in EduTech in India, right? And they've got money from all over the planet. So I think in India, you need to think a little bit differently. The packet sizes are typically smaller. The investments and as well as the users are not going to be spending more, but the volume is substantially greater. And so your churn is much higher. The second thing is there are some things India does exceptionally well. Software, I think, is one where, a lot of the guys from here are in the companies there, in Google and Facebook and all that. And we also have on-site teams in India. It's becoming a little challenging for us because a lot of the MNCs are snapping up the top talent and paying them at US rates, but that's a separate issue. The bigger thing, though, is I think if we can develop more hardware and more science-based things here, the level of research I've not found to be on par because it's not funded. I mean, in medicine, for instance, most of the people are scrambling to get stuff done. Now, the learning points, though, are that fast-moving ideas and young entrepreneurs coming out of college are many. And I'm coming upon so many amazing people who are driven. And so as an investment hub, it's huge. I think the one thing I would say as a criticism is most of the Indian VCs and PEs that I've met don't have the long-term vision. They're looking at the short term and 3 years exit and things like that. I would say that if Facebook started in India, they wouldn't have made it through just on traction. They would have had to see revenue models and financial models. And if you see the investments that have happened in the last 5 years, the majority of them have gone in the way of firmly established companies with revenue models in the Series C and above, B, C, and D. Not as many in the founder space, the seed and the initial round. And that's where, the real cull happens. I would say in the US, we're a little more, and my holdings in the US, I invest in companies there too. And it's a little different, right? That you're willing to take chances and spray and play. Here, I'm not seeing as much of that.
Thanks, Shriram. And on a lighter note, Madhuri, I was just watching the IPL in Abu Dhabi, and I was just telling Shriram via email before we started talking that they were actually playing Ek Do Teen on the loudspeaker. So coincidence, providence, call it what you want. So
nice.
A question from someone in the audience about what is the favorite dance in your movie that you've done that you look back at? The favorite dance sequence?
I think it's hard to say because every dance sequence was different from the other. I think I would say that all the songs that I've done with Saroj Khan, she was one of my favorite choreographers, or the song that I did with Prabhu Deva, or, so those are the songs that I have. The songs I've done with Birju Maharaji for Devdas, Kahe Chhed Chhed Moye, which was very, very in a classical zone. And one of the choreographers, Farah Khan, was telling me that she had gone for these competitions somewhere where they were, all the mothers were competing. And she said, there were 42 contestants and 41 of them did Kahe Chhed Chhed Mohe. So she had to see the same song 41 times. And so I think there's a lot that went into these songs. Every song was done with a lot of love and, trying to create something different so that the audience has a different experience each time they see a new song. So I think, most of the songs that I've done.
Great. No, that's terrific. Just wanted, there's some, so many comments coming up saying you're a great power couple. Love both of you so much. And many, many adoring comments, but we want to close on that. It's been an hour and 15 minutes, and I know it's pretty late in Mumbai, but once again, Ram and Madhuri, really want to thank you on behalf of Indiaspora and our members, and wish you the best of luck in your endeavors as you go forward. And thank you so much.
And Amar, thank you for having us. It was a pleasure meeting your team, and congratulations on a very amazing organization. And I think to everyone else, I mean, there's hope out there. I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, but trust me when I say that there are silver linings. There's less pollution. We're not traveling as much. We're all together as families. So we'll get through this together. And the bottom line is you just need to kind of keep your ears up. And I was laughing about this, but the University of YouTube is always open. I've learned so many darn things through that and through the edutatext that you can't even imagine. There are things I never had time for.
Yeah, and please check out Dance with Madhuri. I think that'll really entertain you guys.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Take care.
Good night.